great to be with you, and it's a real privilege to be sharing with you a few thoughts on a subject that is very close to my heart. And it's also especially important in every facet and area of business and work. I'm Mike Erasmus, and what I do is I help people find the skills and attitudes that they need to get ahead, both in the fast-paced and highly pressurized corporate world, as well as in managing and running their own businesses. Now, a little bit of my background: I started out life in the mining industry, and I stayed there for over 16 years. And I started where most people start, which was at the very bottom of the corporate ladder. I mean the very, very bottom. Now, obviously, I wasn't keen to stay at the bottom, so I studied a bit, got a few degrees, most notably in psychology and in labor law as well, some other qualifications, and I worked as hard as I could, and I soon found myself climbing up that corporate ladder, and I ended up at the very top of that thing. I've been on the production side of things, I've been on the non-production side of things, and I've been at both executive and senior management. And I believe I've learned many, many valuable lessons along the way, mostly, of course, on what doesn't work. I eventually found myself in a position at the very top of the corporate ladder, wondering what I was doing there. Now, this is not an unfamiliar story at all, and I'm pretty sure that you've also found yourself in a situation where you were sure that there was more to life than what you're currently doing. Frustrated, maybe stuck in a certain place, seemingly unable to move on or move up. Well, the truth of the matter is that moving on or up isn't nearly as difficult as it often seems. But, and here's the secret, it's an inside job. Nothing more, nothing less. Moving on or up is not dependent on your boss. It's not dependent on your customers. It's not dependent on your company or your circumstances. And it is definitely not dependent on where you come from or what your background is. You need to believe that. Moving on or up is entirely dependent on who you are and who you're prepared to become. Now, that's great news indeed, because it means that it's entirely within your control. Moving on or up is influenced only by the skills you learn, the attributes you take on, and the values you adhere to. And all these things are completely under your control. Now, in this short course, we'll be discussing a few strategies and some things you can do to take control of your time and of your day. Now, imagine if you could master just that, just taking control of your day, then stringing a few days like that together. Now, before you know it, every day will have the potential to be one that you control instead of the other way around. Imagine how much less stress there will be in your life. Imagine how much more focus you'll have. Imagine how calm, and the focus will be challenged into all the things that are really important, like your family, your hobbies, whatever it is that gives you joy. And imagine especially how much more effective you'll be in whatever it is that you do to earn your living. All of this from simply learning to manage your time more effectively, and thereby taking back control of your days. So, as we go through this course, we'll look at the following tools, to better manage your time and be more productive. In Module 1, we'll be looking at optimizing productivity within your time and space. We'll help you visualize your ideal workspace and consider ways to make this a reality. And in order to make the most use of time, think about where the most productivity takes place in your life. In Module 2, we look at focused task management. There are surprising disadvantages to multitasking, to context switching, task switching, and all those fancy things. And we'll discuss that in this module. That may seem impressive for you to do, many tasks as you can. You'll be more productive doing one thing at a time. In Module 3, we'll take a look at prioritizing daily tasks. How do you decide on the most important tasks? We'll help you discover how to get the most out of work time by focusing on the highest priority tasks. During Module 4, we'll look into how to pay attention to your time. What does it mean to be mindful of your time? Because only if you focus on the present moment will you be fully invested in the actual task at hand. So going further into Module 5, we'll look at setting up your daily systems. We'll look at the big picture and then focus in on the day-to-day reality of making your goals come to fruition. And now the last module, we'll look at how to set a schedule and how to stick to it. Consider how you want each hour of every day to flow and create a realistic structure to follow that. So before we get going, just allow me to indulge in a story that I believe will go a long way towards illustrating the power of this topic, both with reference to time management and prioritizing. It's an old story, and I've no doubt you've heard it before, but listen with the current topic in mind, and I'm pretty sure that'll be a bit of a light bulb moment for you, as it was for me. Now, there was a philosophy professor once, and he decided to teach his students some valuable lessons about time management. So on that particular day, he stood in front of his class with some rocks, some pebbles, some sand, and an empty jar on the table. As the class walked in, he didn't say a word. He simply picked up his jar and proceeded to fill it with the rocks, about 5 centimeters big. He then looked at the class and he asked them, is the jar full? And they all agreed, yep, that thing's full. So what he did then was he picked up the box of pebbles, poured them into the jar, and he shook the jar a little bit. And the pebbles, of course, rolled through the gaps, as you would imagine, between the rocks. Then he looked up at the students and he said, well, is the jar full now? They all very wisely nodded, yes, it's full. So for the last time, he turned towards the jar, and this time he picked up his box of sand. He poured it into the jar, once again jiggled it around, and of course you can understand what happened. The sand moved into the gaps and filled up everything else. Then he asked one last time, is this jar finally full? And the students were surprised, but they responded unanimously, yes it is. Of course it is. Now, the professor said, I want you to realize that this jar is actually your life. The rocks are the important things, your family, your children, your health, your partner, things that are everything to you. If nothing remained in life, but only these, your life would still be full and rewarding. The pebbles are the other things that matter, like your job, your career, your house, and so on and so forth. And the sand, well, the sand is everything else, the small stuff, the unimportant stuff, the stuff that defocuses you, that takes up your day. Now here's what happens. If you put the sand, the unimportant stuff, into the jar first, he continued, there's no space for the pebbles, and there's no space for the rocks, and there's no space for your career, no space for your family. So what's the moral of this little story? Well, the professor continued, the same goes for your life. If you keep on filling the jar with the sand, it means that you keep on spending all your time and energy on the small petty things. You'll never have rooms for the things that are most important to you. Pay attention to the things that are valuable to your happiness. Spend time with your children. Take your partner out to dinner. Whatever it is for you. First and foremost, focus on the rocks. The things that are most important, then the pebbles. Set your priorities. And then the rest is just sand. So this short story, I believe, puts everything into perspective for me, and hopefully for you, in terms of how important it is to prioritize and in terms of managing your time effectively. So keep this in mind as we go through the following modules, and I'm looking forward to sharing some more with you, and really hope that in some way this course will make a difference in your life. So we'll see you in Module 1.